Welcome, everyone, to Zahn Academy's new series, A Look in the Lab. My name is Fran Parathyras, and I am with the education team over at Zahn. Today's program is Game-Changing 3D Printing Applications. My guests today are Jim Swartout, who is the CEO and president of Myerson Dental, and Brian Napolitano, who is the president of Precision Craft Dental Lab, which is a premier dental lab on the East Coast located in Rhode Island. Jim, I'm going to start with you today. I heard that you were being presented with a very prestigious award back in 2020 from the UV and EB technology. Can you explain a little bit about that?
Thanks, Fran. Yeah, it was a tremendous surprise and a great honor. RadTech is a global association that brings together all of the industries involved with either UV or electron beam technology. So that includes automotive, medical device, food and beverage. So Ford, Pepsi, all the giants that use UV technology for for curing labels on cans, for putting coatings on cars. Dental obviously has been a world leader in 3D printing and a large consumer of it. So to be recognized by such a prestigious group for our emerging technology, for our polymer, was awesome. It was humbling. There were people there who were working on using UV to clean water in developing countries. I was on stage with Pepsi. So for privately held family dental business to be up there with these global conglomerates was a great honor, and really appreciate them recognizing the major investment in R&D that we put into this new polymer technology.
So this new polymer is called Trusana, and you won the award for that specifically, right?
Correct. Yeah, they had recognized that we were emerging as a leader in the next generation of 3D resins. Certainly, 3D has been very successful in dental, but up until now, we've been primarily in dental labs and dental offices printing models. And then I would say, more basic dental appliances. But ultimately, everyone wants to take full advantage of additive manufacturing and move towards printing the final device. And the printers that we've been working with in the dental industry have been increasingly more accurate. They've been consistent. They've become more reliable. They're affordable. So it really hasn't been the printers that have been holding us back. Everyone's looking for that next generation of polymers to deliver the kind of tough materials that we need in dental for the long term. And that's where we believe Trusana is, in that category of next generation polymer technology.
So with this photopolymer in the development phase, what were the characteristics that you were trying to achieve with Trusana in the beginning?
Well, when you've been making teeth for 100 years, you sort of know what a good-looking teeth look like, or at least you better. So we understood that, number one, it had to be beautiful, and number two, it had to be long-lasting. So that's easy to say, but to achieve that in a process like additive manufacturing is a whole nother ball game. But we knew what we wanted to do was to deliver something that I said to our team you could not distinguish from a Myerson resin tooth that we've been making since the 1960s. So I wanted to look as good, and I want it to be as wear resistant or as tough, if not more so. In Trusana, we got lucky. Not only did we get something that was really beautiful, we got something that on paper is actually outperforms the crosslink teeth we've been making for decades. So we felt like it was not only achieving our own standards for aesthetics and shade consistency, but actually in terms of polymer technology, a big step forward.
Excellent. So what would you say sets this super resin apart from others in its category? Like, what do you feel are those characteristics?
I think there's just a few that I would touch on. Number one is, if you just look at the team we put together to bring this to the market, it's been a unique collaboration between academia. I'm lucky enough to work as partners with some of the top experts in their field. I work with one of the leading prosthodontists in the world, one of the leading polymer scientists who's at a dental school. It also allowed us to work at a very early stage with some of the leading dental laboratories in the United States, including Ryan's. So I felt like it was the best of any R&D project where you bring all the stakeholders together and talk about what you really want to accomplish, versus so often what we in manufacturing do is just bring a product to dental lab and say, hey, it's going to work, trust us, go ahead and start using it. This was different. Like the input that Ryan gave us was absolutely foundational to what ultimately became a product we could commercialize. So I think that partnership with all the stakeholders was unique. The amount of effort we put into independent testing, I think, is unique, where we've worked with making sure that all the data that we presented was based on multi-site studies with tests conducted independently. We're very proud of all of the dental schools we're collaborating with for clinical trials. The physical properties of the material we think are unique in terms of having such a tough material that really enters a category of itself. It's something that is exceptionally strong and maintains that strength in water. Every time I present Trusana to someone who's an expert in photopolymers, they say to me, wow, that's the holy grail. You've finally done it. We've been looking for a super tough material that looks good and stays that way in water. So I think all those factors, Fran, have what made this, not only a unique product, but also a unique process to arrive at it.
So how did you take the chemistry of Trusana and make it applicable to dentistry?
The two scientists and clinicians I've worked with them for 14 years. So they brought this technology to me right in the depths of the Great Recession, when like so much of us in the dental industry were just trying to figure out what to do when 25% of our volume went away. So right then they brought me this exciting new polymer technology. And the analogy I would give and have given before is, when your only tool in your toolbox is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. Mm-hmm. So when my partners brought me the polymer technology first, I thought, well, we'll make teeth out of it. That's what we do. And so we tried to make conventional denture teeth out of it. We had some success, but we realized how rapidly things were developing in the CAD/CAM arena. So we pivoted to next making discs out of it. Mm-hmm. And then we saw how we could achieve the same results in additive manufacturing through 3D printing. And that's when we threw all of our resources behind taking this polymer and turning it into a 3D printing resin.
How did you decide to partner with us here, Zahn and Henry Schein?
That was an easy choice. We have worked closely with Henry Schein in the US and Canada at Zahn Dental Laboratory Division successfully for decades. We have a great working relationship, have the utmost respect for Henry Schein and the Zahn Dental team, their dedication to doing everything the right way, not being afraid to take a chance and being at the forefront of emerging technologies. So every time we've developed a new digital material, whether it was our Duraflex milling discs or Zerlex acetal and now Trusana, it was just such a natural partnership. And we're not only excited about the chance to bring Trusana to the US market, but also to be at the leading edge globally as we move towards 3D printing. So just a super natural choice for us and an outstanding partnership.
Very exciting, Jim. Thank you so much for opening up to us and giving us your insight. And congratulations on winning that very, very prestigious award on innovation. Now I want to turn it over to Ryan. Ryan Napolitano, you are the president of Precision Craft Dental Laboratory over in Rhode Island. How are you today?
I'm great. Thanks for having me, Fran.
Oh, my pleasure. So you and Jim have a really nice long relationship, and you started with all of the beta testing with Jim as well with Trusana. So
we did.
Maybe if you want to just tell me a little bit about you, Precision Craft, and just what it was like to, take this new polymer, super polymer, and, be able to beta test it and give all your information back to Myerson.
Absolutely. I've been in the lab industry now I'm a son of a dental technician, so I've been in the lab industry forever, but, full-time here at the laboratory for the last 20 years, and it's been an exciting ride. Digital has always been a great tool for us here at the laboratory. Ever since we started way back when with, I think, a CEREC in lab and, did the progression that most labs have done over the years. The addition of additive manufacturing really has jump-started a lot of exciting technology when it comes to the laboratories. And I think that Jim is working on what many of us consider to be the last frontier, and that's digital removables. Really the last bastion of analog work that the lab has. And it's when he came to me with Trusana, the trajectory for the lab had been kind of in flux. We didn't really know what we were going to do with digital removables. We had tried a lot of materials that were in the marketplace, and nothing was a great fit. When we look at, and I think Jim said it well when he was talking about how he thought about bringing things to the market and not just dumping it on a lab and saying it's going to be great.
Mhm.
When we looked at what he had with Trusana and he kind of outlined what he wanted to do with the product, it really resonated with me because so many systems that we see are designed to be placed in a laboratory, and then the lab has to modify what they do to fit the system that was sold to them. Jim really looked at this and said, I want this to plug into a laboratory and be an extension and improvement of what they're doing today. And for a lab tech, that's music to my ears. So I was super excited to jump on board. And I think that the icing on the cake for me was when we were doing the beta testing, I was actually dealing with one of their chemists and engineers when we were talking about the product. And that's who I was getting feedback from. And that's who I was delivering feedback to. So we were seeing a lot of changes in real time. We would make comments or suggestions and they would say, hey, well, maybe try this or try that. And it was fabulous. It was fabulous right from the get-go.
So you guys really, really worked on this hand in hand together, day after day.
We did. And I was really taken by the thoughtfulness that they had early on with their beta testing. One of the big things for me, was really how well they had lined up a lot of the basic settings. When we're dealing with printers and we're dealing with different technology, there is so much that can be looked at as a variable between how the lab works and how the material works. They really did a lot of testing with some of the nuanced variables, how to place the supports, the type of supports, the curing times. And a lot of that was really worked out in their alpha testing, which I was really appreciative of, to the point where I'm not going to say it was plug and play right out of the box, because I certainly was able to break a few things myself, but all of the heavy lifting was already done. And, we were having successful prints on day 2, of having the system delivered to the laboratory, which was pretty amazing for me.
So it was pretty easy to implement this right into the lab. It really
was. Yeah, it really was. We really didn't skip a beat when it came to implementation. The product really blended into the laboratory fairly seamlessly. There was really little that needed to be adjusted in our day-to-day workflow.
That's great.
Yeah.
The other thing I want to know is, after your first experience with Trusana, what did you think after the first time you had this material since you worked with it?
Yeah, and that was kind of an eye opener for me too. Especially on the tooth material. The tooth material, I think, is really a shining star in the Trusana system. The way that they've developed the photochemistry in here is a lot different than what I've seen in many of the other products you'll see in the market. And we've looked at a lot of them. When I first saw the prints coming out of the printer, I was really taken by, number one, the surface texture that was coming right out of the printer. I thought it was phenomenal. And the second was the amount of translucency versus opacity that the material was giving without modification. Okay. So just after the material was washed and cured, we were already seeing kind of a gradation in color, where you would see, that denser area in the thicker parts, and you'd see legitimate translucency coming through as the teeth, shape towards the incisal. So it was really, really nice to see.
So more of a lifelike look to these.
Absolutely. And it only gets better when you start manipulating the material more in post-processing too.
Mm-hmm. So you have many cases passing through your denture department. What would you say differentiates Trusana with other materials of its kind?
I'd say the biggest thing is that Jim and his product are not out to sell you a specific solution. They're out to enhance what you're doing in your laboratory today. So when I look at a lot of the other digital systems when we're dealing with removables, they're all pigeonholed into something. Either they want to sell you a specific tooth, they want to sell you a specific piece of equipment or whatever it is. And there was always a catch with a lot of these other systems, and they never really fit seamlessly in. When I look at my denture department today and we look at the work that's going through, I could pretty much pick most any case off the shelf, and I can find an applicable use for Trusana in those cases, whether it's printing the teeth, printing the full denture, working with a partial, whatever, So the system is very flexible, and it lets me really adapt it well to most situations in the laboratory.
Fran,
And
if I could just
sure.
jump on, sorry to talk across you, but just to jump on what Ryan said, and I'm trying not to blush, Ryan, thank you, but so many kind words. But I really appreciate that last remark, because it's exactly what we were trying to accomplish. Was the last thing the world needs is another 3D print resin, just like they don't need another printer. What Ryan's talking about is real life in the dental lab today, which is a lot of cases flooding the lab, a shortage of technicians, a shortage of time, and you really need to be able to get the cases out the door without new problems or new risks. And it wasn't like there was no problems in the denture department to begin with. So this technology came out of trying to solve a clinical problem, which is an implant prosthetics. And whether it was a milled CAD/CAM disc out of PMMA or conventional acrylic and denture teeth, whatever dental laboratories had to work with in the area of implant prosthetics, and specifically fixed implant complete dentures, was not living up to the task. It was failing about 20% of the time. This has been proven. The technology that we brought to Ryan in his lab and other labs like his was meant to solve a clinical problem, which is the durability of implant prosthetics. It was such a natural fit for Myerson to turn to Ryan, because his lab, Precision Craft, has for years been seen as a leader in implant education and implant prosthetics. So, the last thing Ryan needs is yet another material on his shelf for his technicians to figure out. What he needs is something that helps solve problems in his lab, and specifically in his implant department. So I also think, you asked me earlier what's different about it, is that was the aim here, was to try to move dentistry ahead and do it in an area where it needs it, which is, let's have longer lasting, tougher, and beautiful fixed implant prosthetics. If we look at the investment that patients are making in all-in-4 restorations, which is significant, it's like buying a car. Why are we okay with having something that fails 20% of the time? It's not okay. Premature tooth wear, breakage, every dental lab, every dentist sees it. So when I talked to Ryan initially, it was really to focus on that rather than, hey, here's another print resin. Additive manufacturing and Ryan's leadership in that area is fundamentally about the flexibility of taking advantage of additive manufacturing to do what you want to do when you want to do it. So Ryan and I have been friends and colleagues talking about digital dentures for years. It's just so exciting to be at the point we can start solving problems today.
Yep. I mean, I am a practicing dental hygienist, and Jim, I know I've spoken to you about this. I mean, I've seen cases where dentures, are worn down because of substandard, materials. And honestly, I can't wait to see, a Trusana denture and get to see these patients be so happy, because I mean, yes, it's a lot of time and it's an awful lot of money that these patients, spend. They want to walk around and feel confident and be able to smile and feel like their teeth look natural. That really is the basis of what a patient really wants and what a clinician wants out of their denture, being given to a patient. So I'm really excited to see that, and to see that these teeth actually do hold up, to water solubility, bruxism, strong bites. It's going to be nice to see.
It is. And, one of the real torture tests that I've been putting the material through, and I've only been telling Jim little bits and pieces, but we've switched over a lot of our all-on-4 conversion prosthetics, day of prosthetics, to Trusana. And that is, and arguably one of the toughest things a restoration can do is be modified heavily chairside, added to with unconventional materials, and then have to sit in a patient's mouth for 6 to 12 months without breaking. And we have about 25 of these restorations in the mouth this past 2 to 3 months. And I don't have a single fracture. Oh, I said it out loud. A single. Well, hope I don't get a single fracture. Can I take it back? But we really haven't had any fracture, come up with the material, which is shocking for me. Quite frankly, a lot of these traditional conversions we're doing with traditional dentures, we are reinforcing with wire and we are making very thick just for the reason of trying to keep these things in one piece.
Mhm.
And to be able to now take these restorations, print them, and not have to do a ton of reinforcement chairside while we're waiting to get this surgical process done is phenomenal. It really is phenomenal.
Ryan raises a couple excellent points. So number one is that's exactly what we're trying to accomplish is for us, when you've been around for 100 years, trying to make it another 100, right? And this is a marathon for us. As all of us make the pivot from the traditional way of doing things, just like Ryan, I'm a child of the dental industry. And at 6 years old, even though I'm not a technician, my dad had me sitting at a bench, playing around with wax and carving wax. So I grew up around
We have a
dental
support
labs.
group.
Yeah.
We have a support group for guys like us, Jim.
Yeah. So I grew up too, and want to see dental labs succeed. And I think labs have done a remarkable job of adapting to new technology, whether it's CNC milling, 3D printing. Labs are really nimble, and especially labs like Ryan's. So that's number one, is being able to incorporate new technology and adapt it to the needs of the lab. But I think beyond that, this is a marathon, especially if we're looking at implant prosthetics. It's the fastest growing segment in dentures. We know from seeing the scientific studies that patients absolutely have much more confidence with an implant supported denture. It's unquestioned how it changes their life.
Absolutely.
So the impact that we're making is significant, but we owe it to the patient to have something that lasts as long as they need it to last. So if it's tissue borne, we've had decades of experience in the dental industry of providing nice looking, durable dentures. Have not been as successful in implant prosthetics, and now's the time to change that.
Yeah,
So
well said.
Ryan, we know about the strength, right? How about the aesthetics?
The aesthetics have been really, really nice. I have been very happy overall. So let's talk about what I'm doing for post-processing so I can kind of get the playing field
Mhm.
level. So we offer a few different levels of restoration in the laboratory. We have what I would consider to be more of an immediate denture option, and then more of a premium denture option. So when we're looking at the immediate denture option, my cases normally will go out with very, very minimal characterization in the denture base. It's basically what we're doing in the digital sculpting and a little bit of freehand adjustment post-processing.
Mhm.
And then we are glazing the pink surfaces and we're mechanically polishing the teeth. And that is just a very simple, basic, immediate denture option that we give to patients as an economy option, if you will. Those have been very, very nice when you look at it compared to other economy options that we would generally offer. Where I think the material shines, and I've been a big fan of this because I just personally like the work and the artistry that goes into it, is when we start to characterize the material in the area of composites. So that really makes the material pop. It really does. So, and I will tell you that most of our characterization is done with the denture base. So I work with Annex Dent and their gingival materials here at the laboratory. I like the system. And the ability to create a lot of gingival structures and root structures in the denture base gives it such vitality. It's great. And I'll say that the colors that Myerson has for the base material are fundamentally great starting places as well. The light pinks, the regular pinks, I mean, they're true to an acrylic kind of palette when we look at what we think of for a light pink, an orange pink, things of that nature. So it's a great starting point. The teeth themselves, I actually haven't had to do very, very much in the way of characterization. the vast majority of the cases get either glazed or hand polished, sometimes depending on doctor preference.
Okay.
And maybe occasionally we're using a little bit of, again, a light cure stain, something like the GC kit, where we can add in a little bit more of an effect if people have more of a bluish translucency or, whatever the case may be. But from an aesthetic standpoint, it's a great palette to start working on. It really is.
And Fran, just to add to what Ryan said, when we were doing our beta testing with labs like Ryan's, I was honestly a little shocked from what I heard about first generation resins and what labs had to put up with.
Mhm.
Number one was they said, why do I have such sophisticated printing technology and all I can make is a temporary denture, right?
Yeah.
So that, problem number one. Problem number two was it's pink and white. It doesn't,
Colors,
and
that's it.
yeah, and so that was a step backward if you think about it. The doctors don't care how something's made. Dental labs do. Doctors don't. The patient and the dentist and the team want to see something that looks natural and that's comfortable to wear and long lasting. So if you look at the kind of things that labs had to work around, the other thing I heard that was a little bit of a horror story for us was just the inconsistency of shades of first generation materials. I heard
Yeah.
labs were mixing bottles of tooth resins to try to get kind of a consistent shade. We will have a Trusana shade guide. Every print will match our shade guide. That to me is just fundamental to what 3D should aspire to. Is why should we have our dental laboratory customers, as Ryan said, kind of modify what they do to accept the technology? It's supposed to be the other way around. The technology is supposed to enhance what you do, save labor, save time. So, there'll be other materials besides Trusana that do that. We're just pleased to be among the first. But, fundamentally, what Ryan and his team do and other labs like them is hard. You're working in the background. You don't get the praise that dentists do. You're only as good as your last case. But I
Yeah.
think additive manufacturing, its predictability, ultimately reproducibility, are all things that can aid a dental lab.
I mean, it's so true that, it takes a whole group of people to come up with a beautiful, restoration at the end of the day for the patient. And a lot of the time, the lab is really not looked at as far as like from what the patients see, and I say that from being behind the chair. I mean, I was one of those people. I really didn't realize how fantastic, all the labs are, and the work that they do and what they give back to the patient, at the end of the day. They give them their smile, and it's really an admirable position to be in. But I want to know a little bit, Ryan, about what your clinicians are saying about the dentures that they're receiving in their office. Like, have they given you any type of feedback on their clinical experience?
The one feedback that I have gotten pretty consistently, and I'm very much in the camp of no news is good news
Yeah.
when it comes to a lot of this. But one of the main points of feedback that I have gotten with this has been fit and the improvement of fit over what we've been seeing with hand packed or injection heat process dentures. And really, one of the key areas for that is doctors who have sent in digital scans of existing dentures for us to replicate.
Mhm.
And that is something that I can really use as a strong litmus test and say, they scanned this denture that said it was fitting well, and we delivered it back, and we were spot on with expectations. So from that standpoint, I can be really confident that the fit I'm delivering is as we are advertising. And the interesting thing about these prints is, and Jim, I'm going to little secret out here. The beta testing that we've been doing has not been on a $100,000 printer. It's been on a very, very basic printer in the marketplace right now.
Mhm.
One that is arguably the cheapest printer I have in my laboratory right now, and it's producing excellent results. So the material, even at that level, is working phenomenally. I can only imagine what it's going to do if I stuck it in a carbon printer or if I stuck it in even my Asiga printers.
Mhm.
So it's really, really nice to see that's coming in, and it also adds to the accessibility of the material. A small laboratory doesn't have to invest $50,000 or $75,000 in a printer to make Trusana part of their workflow. This is something that really is, at the ability of a lot of laboratories to do.
Fran, I think Ryan raises two different but really important points. The first one is when he talks about accuracy and precision of fit. That's what dentists care most about is, they don't have time in the chair to be making adjustments. So we first gained, in the dental industry, huge advantages with CAD/CAM, with milling, and ultimately how precise that is. 3D printing, I think, is at that same point now where you can get predictable results. As Ryan said, the printers are very accurate. And then that whole digital workflow from having that patient's file that can be recreated at any time. I also think there was a general belief that 3D printing would replace milling. And what I've seen in labs like Ryan's and others is they see how they coexist and really complement each other. So there's times you want to mill, there's times you want to print, you want to have the flexibility to choose. And that goes to Ryan's second point about, we're a third-party resin company, as that's what we're called in the industry. We don't have a printer that we make. We believe in working with existing printing platforms and the best ones, and letting the lab choose which printing platform that they want to use. I'm not in favor of closed systems and 3D printing. I wasn't in favor of it for milling. I feel like it limits the choice that dental labs have to work with the materials they want to serve their doctors and their patients. So I really believe that what Ryan's talking about is really important for dental labs, is to choose printing platforms that are open to the best materials in the widest range, so that they can make the decision of what they're going to use for each case, not to be forced into a little box of this is all you get to use.
What about patient experience, Ryan? Do the clinicians come back to you with maybe some pictures of the patients, and do you get to see exactly like what it looks like live?
Yeah. Yep. And the biggest feedback that I get is in the implant restorations, because I do see these patients again 6-12 months later, when we're doing follow-ups and everything along the way. So not only do I get to see it from a aesthetic standpoint in the positive, I also get to see it in an aesthetic case in the negative as well. So, and your life as a hygienist, I want to see how much plaque and tartar is building up on these appliances. I want to see how, the material can react to varied levels of home care. So it's been very nice and refreshing for me to see that these restorations are holding up very well from that standpoint. From a aesthetic and a smile standpoint, a lot of the cases that we do are really dealing with more debilitated dentition. So I am lucky enough to give people a new smile pretty often that they're very, very happy with. And the overall response, with Trusana has been very positive in that light.
I mean, a smile gives people confidence.
Yeah.
Makes them, they're not covering themselves all the time. And that's a beautiful gift to give to someone.
And that's what you did right there, is a very, very apropos gesture that we see so many times with people who just don't like their smile. They want to smile and they do one of those. It's so common to see.
Fran, I just wanted to add to Ryan's experience. The first case that my partner, Dr. Steve Sadowski, did in his private practice with Trusana, the patient he was treating, her two children were dentists. So talk about a high pressure environment. And they did a provisional fixed implant complete denture before she moved on to zirconia. And when he delivered the case, he said not only were the dentists could not believe it had been 3D printed, he said, moreover, the patient commented not only how natural it looked in her mouth, but how light it felt. So if you just think about it, that is the advantage of working with polymers, is we can deliver a prosthesis that looks like natural teeth and is light and comfortable to wear if it's durable, if it has wear resistance, if it has toughness. So ultimately, we feel like this can help advance implant prosthetics, because it can give patients an alternative to zirconia. There's no question zirconia is the gold standard, or the ceramic standard, I guess I should say. But can 3D printing and 3D printing materials help to close the gap and give patients a choice? And a major advantage of polymer materials is something Ryan mentioned earlier, is the ability to make adjustments chairside and add to it as they need to build up a tooth, whatever they need to do. So that's the real advantage of polymer technology: lightweight, ability to adjust it chairside with conventional acrylic materials. Trusana makes that possible, and I just think that enhances overall care for the patient.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Ryan, can you share a little bit about your return on investment with Trusana?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I look at it, the tough part is you have to remember that you're buying the material by the liter or the kilo, right? And it costs a certain amount. But when we look at ROI and the cost of doing these cases, and I'm speaking pretty much specifically in the implant restoration based category here, the amount of labor that we were expending to do these cases traditionally was miles ahead of what we spend now to do these cases digitally. You know, my manual labor, which as we all know is in short supply, goes way down. The ability for me to move the designing around is phenomenal. We can really work with that in a lot of different ways. And when we talk about material cost and we draw that dotted line, the amount that we would spend with Trusana versus doing carded teeth and denture base is still less. So we really there's not much of a comparison that you can make where things are close. You know, we're really seeing savings across the board. You know, I'm seeing time savings with labor, I'm seeing material savings, and then in the post processing, we do have, depending on the type of restoration, there may be a little bit more of an increase in material costs if I'm using, say, composite versus, you know, just manual finishing. But it still isn't offset by the amount of labor that we saved at the onset when we were creating the restoration.
Awesome. That's great.
Yeah.
I would
Yeah.
add
No,
to that,
it's
Fran, that when I'm lucky enough to go visit dental labs, you know, over most of the world, and the thing that's very consistent is how much the evolution of CAD design has transformed the dental lab. Where you see art students sitting in a dental lab who are comfortable working on a PC, and it used to be that only experienced denture technicians could do dentures. And what dental labs have been able to do is bring in from outside of the industry people who are, you know, have a skill set in graphics, and have them up and running and doing partials and dentures and crowns. And that's all because of how advanced CAD design is these days. And so having additive manufacturing on the tail end of that really completes the full digital workflow and results in great aesthetics and great predictability. And then it allows you to be much more efficient with the labor you have, so you can get more cases out the door, which is the challenge every dental lab faces. They don't have less work to do. They got more work with fewer people. So that's the real promise of additive manufacturing. It rounds out where we already are with milling, and provides, you know, the last missing element.
Yeah, it takes a lot of the stress out. A lot of the stress out.
Oh, there's still plenty of stress, right, Ryan?
Yeah, we're hoping that it's going to get to the stress level, but you know, I think that's
Shift
the
into
reach
other
goal.
areas, yeah.
But it
Any
is,
more
you know,
comments?
I would say that the biggest thing for me when we look at Trusana and how it applies into the laboratory, the ability for us to digitize removables is one of the biggest game changers we've seen in the last 5 to 10 years. You know, that really, as I said earlier, it's the last bastion of purely analog work that most laboratories have, and they're not making many denture technicians anymore. So the ability, as Jim said, for us to take people in different career paths and blend them into a dental lab is phenomenal. You know, the idea that we don't have to spend 5 to 10 years making somebody proficient at wax and acrylic and setting teeth is just so refreshing. You know, we're really able to have the same amount of staff that I had before, but the productivity has just gone up exponentially with them. So I can actually handle my caseload for once in a while.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic.
Yep.
Any last comments from you, Jim?
No, just so grateful, Fran, for you hosting us. It's a great forum for us to talk about, you know, the partnership that we've had with Ryan and the Lexer Group as a whole, and bringing this new product to market. We've got lots in the pipeline that Ryan will be evaluating as soon as it's available. No, thank you. What a great opportunity. What a nice forum to sort of have a conversation about the state of the industry and new developments in it. So thanks for hosting, Fran.
And I want to thank both of you for joining me on our first A Look in the Lab. I'm so honored and happy that I got to spend my first hour of time with the both of you. So thank you so much. And I want to just let everybody know that there will be more on Trusana this month. On March 9th, we're going to have a webinar, and that's going to be a technician's experience with Trusana with Chris Schermerhorn. And on 3/16, you can join Matt Vines, and this is going to be like a how-to kind of series called In the Lab, using Trusana to print premium dentures. So I want to thank everybody for joining us today on A Look in the Lab, and we'll see you next month. Have a great day, all. Thank you.